Just about 1 week until National Signing Day. So we've talked about this, though. Penn State, they're pretty much locked in for 2024. We'll give you any things to worry about, things to think about coming up here on the show. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about the latest news, about players, things that happened over the last couple of weeks here on the BWI Live Recruiting Show. I'm Thomas Frankar, Ryan Snyder, and Sean Fitz, the leading industry experts in recruiting, are here to talk about what they know. And Ryan, let's start with what we talked about last week. Your story had a happy ending. Imhotep, Kenny Woseley, you were saying you were rooting for the good story. The good story happened. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Imhotep finally gets their win, right? Since 2015. They've been runners up, I think it was 6 times. They didn't have that 2020 season. So a lot of runner-up finishes for them. 3 to Cathedral Prep, 1 to Pine Richland, 1 to Penn Stratford. But they dominated Dallas the other night. And we're going to talk about state championships a little bit later. But anybody who watched, that was a theme this past weekend with pretty much only one game that was really all that competitive. But it was very competitive with Westinghouse and Southern Columbia. But yeah, good for Kenny to finish out a really strong season. You know, we joke all the time about his kicking, but he had a heck of a field goal in that game from 30 yards that, man, it would have been good from like 45, which is always just kind of fun to watch. But, you know, I know he's a cornerback, right? And that's what we should be talking about. And, you know, for a guy to finish with 6 interceptions his senior year, I thought was a really good stat for him. So, you know, Kenny obviously is going to have to add size down the road. And he's not, I don't think he'll get on the field right away, but like, he gets after it, man. Great locker room guy, incredibly coachable, and somebody that I think with time can certainly be a contributor under Terry Smith.
Yeah, something that about this class, there's a lot of guys in this class that we don't talk a whole lot about that, you know, have a lot of great qualities. Egan Boyer comes to mind, and that's one of the things we can talk about next week. We're going to have the recruiting show, and obviously we'll have some signing day coverage, so check it out. We'll be recapping all of that.
I'm actually going to have a story on Egan today.
All right.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. I love it when there's an unintentional segue. That's fantastic. Fitz, that being said, less than a week from signing day, last check, you know, we're doing our pre-flight checks. Any surprises on the horizon? Any surprises you've seen? And generally, how you feeling about everything heading into the lights coming on for this class and the curtain coming up?
I would say pretty well settled, with the emphasis on pretty well. Penn State's still got some lines out in the water. You don't know if they're going to hit or not, but like, it's time to gear up and make one last push if they're going to do that. Now, Penn State's been all over the country this month, checking out mostly commits and checking in on portal guys for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, you still have your in the back of your mind type guys, but for the most part, what you see is what you get with this class of 2024. Penn State's done a really nice job of keeping those guys in the boat, keeping them settled. A lot less, Ryan, would you agree? A lot less drama in this class in terms of decommits and things like that. I know that there's already been a decommit in the 25 class, but for the most part, like since the end of summer, since Penn State really sort of geared into the next segment of recruiting, you know, Penn State's class has been pretty well solid. So we'll talk more about them next week. Of course, Wednesday is National Signing Day. But yeah, they're going to keep pushing until the end. We're going to see if that's if anything comes to fruition from that.
How advantageous is it that they have been in this cycle of working ahead, giving themselves the latitude to be so focused on the transfer portal? Because it seems like this particular type of year, when I mentioned this, I think the first of the month, when there's 2 priorities, you've got a split focus of the recruiting into National Signing Day and the transfer portal. And Fitz, it seems like having everything as secure and having as little drama as possible seems like a huge bonus. Just generally, where is Penn State, I guess, among the top schools in terms of the ability to do what they've done, which is to have things secure so they can focus on other aspects of the offseason?
You know, I think it's double-edged there in the sense that Penn State does what they do really well, and that's keeping things, you know, sort of grounded. They go after the same type of kid for the most part. Where that kind of leaves you exposed is some of those top kids they're not getting. Like this is a situation where some of the guys that take it to the end, and there aren't many of them anymore, especially with the portal changing the way that things go. It's really been a situation where Penn State has in the last couple of cycles settled into it and then stuck with what they've had, and that works. I mean, it's fine. But on the flip side of that, you're not into these late chasing ones. It used to be that they would go to the All-Star games and have 7 or 8 guys that are legitimately torn on announcing. But with the early signing period, like a lot of those guys that will announce at the Under Armour game or the former Army Bowl in San Antonio, those guys are already signed. So like a lot of the drama has been sucked out of it by then. A lot of the intrigue of the All-Star games, to be honest with you, from a recruiting standpoint, have been sucked out of it. But I think that's okay. Like, you think about all the demands and the pressures and the and everything on these coaches all year round. Like, if you can take a little bit of that away, that's fine. And I don't see from Penn State's perspective, I don't see them really having a ton of game changers. There's certainly examples. Of course, Micah committed on signing day. There are some other guys that came through committed on signing day. So some of those guys are certainly worth it. It's just the right kid. You got to find the right fit. And a lot of those times, and I'm generalizing here, a lot of those times, those guys don't come from the Northeast. And that's kind of what you're thinking about when you talk about Penn State recruiting, is starting regional and then expanding. You're going to have to hold on to your guys that are in Florida, hold on to your guys that are all over the map. But that's kind of how Penn State's approached it. And I think they've done pretty well with it.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a pretty good formula for them, especially with the advent of the transfer portal. One guy I remember specifically, Tariq Castro-Fields, was one of those late drama things, right? I remember we were sitting down in the Beaver Stadium media room at the press conference, and you could hear upstairs the decision come through. So don't get that as much anymore, but you do get to have this very highly polished show you're going to get from Penn State coming up in just a little bit next Wednesday with the National Signing Day. This is a really unique show, because it's interactive and we have the ability to talk to not only our fans, but also sometimes, as we've seen here on the show, recruits and recruits' parents. So this message is for you. If you have a son in football and you want to give them an edge on the football field, MMAFx is for you. Penn State's got a very diverse defensive line class coming in. Some of those people have been here on the show. Check out Bruce Lombard in-state college, whether it's his video tutorial or his personal training sessions that he does with Penn State athletes. Dennis Sutton. It's not just that Denai is very good that has made him a very quick starter on the field. It's that he's putting in the maximum effort to be as good as possible at football. He trains with Bruce in hand fighting, and this is a great opportunity to become just a better all-around athlete. The martial arts and combat sports teach you to be good with your non-dominant hand. They teach you to use your hands and to use leverage. And if there's one thing I hate more than anything, guys, it's looking at a really good athlete who is stiff. Just one of those guys that kind of walks around. He's been in the gym. He's done all the hard work. And then he can't use any of that because he hasn't learned to move his body. So if you want all of those things, the only comprehensive hand fighting program video set for football players available is from Bruce. This features Penn State all Big Ten defensive lineman and NFL player Anthony Zettel. And you can see in this video I'm showing you here on the YouTube channel, he's in a football position when he's doing these moves athletically. So teaching you how to use not just your hands, but also leverage and things like that. Over 2 hours of hand fighting and speed techniques, professionally videographed, which includes different angles on techniques, slow motion and visual details, and attention to technical commenting. So Bruce is there helping you train your players. If you're thinking, I don't know what to do, why would I do this? I'm not Bruce. He's there to help you teach with these videos. Also, if you're here in State College, he does boxing training for offensive linemen because it's a different skill set. It's very detailed to what you need, so check it out. And for the holiday season, if you're a football coach and you want to get either your son, if you're an individual, or a football coach and you want to get your team better on the field, you have a discount code as well. Use promo code 15BWI to get 15% off at lombardmma.com/shop. You can see that here on the screen for the podcast. lombardmma.com/shop. Also, MMAFx.net. Those are the places to go. Guys,
can I chime in here real quick?
Sure.
I talk to a lot of coaches that do these camps, and so much of the emphasis over the last several years has been on the footwork, and you need footwork. Don't get me wrong, the ladders and all that kind of stuff. But like there's 2 parts to that machine there. And a lot of times when they get out there and they see these guys at camp, they're going to watch the lower body, they're going to watch the pop, the twitch and everything like that. But like showing that you know how to use your hands tells you more than just you're able to use your hands. It shows that you have been coached, you've been coachable. It is a situation where you are different from your peers because you can do those things, and then they result in made plays. And to me, this is such an important and overlooked aspect of development, especially in the trenches, especially on the defensive line, that it's something that college coaches and I've talked about, not necessarily the Bruce's thing here, but like that is such an important overlooked aspect of the recruiting process, because everyone's on the ladders and everyone's doing these agility drills, and that's great. But like there are different things that need to be worked on, and that's something that certainly a lot of college coaches would like to see.
Yeah. You have the last word there, but I just want to agree with that in terms of when I'm watching film, I don't necessarily care if you're great at your position, but I want to know that you have been coached and you can learn. And that's one of the things that I think you can see in all of these aspects is like, what's your positional skill? What's up, Ryan?
We got to not acknowledge Mr. Andrews saying he signed up Liam for that in the chat.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. I did not see that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Mr. Andrews, supporting our sponsors. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hopefully,
Liam's not just any Liam. Liam is one of the top ranked guys in Penn State's class. So take that for what it's worth. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he already had his birthday and that we didn't just ruin the surprise. I'm assuming he did if you put that in the chat. Let's get on to some of the news that we've had recently. I want to start actually with Fitz. Keandre Barker, you wanted to talk about that. What's the latest with Keandre Barker?
Yeah, Keandre reached out to me actually, and I think he's wanting to get the word out. And we've talked about him on the channel several times, and we just haven't had any answers for him. I talked to him extensively this morning. Like this was a situation he did not play. I think he carried the ball 4 times. I think this season in the playoffs. It was a weird situation where he came from Arkansas. Of course, a lot of people that have I guess I'll start here. Keandre Barker, 2025 commitment, is in Texas, originally from Arkansas, moved from Arkansas to Texas. When he did so, his former coaches from Arkansas signed this off as an athletic transfer, which flagged the state of Texas Athletic Association, and they ruled him ineligible for the season. Like this is a situation where they took the word of the coaches, even though, I mean, hey man, like the transfers happen all the time, and it's not something that a lot of states take seriously. Texas does. So they flagged him. They ruled him ineligible for the season. By the time the playoffs came, the other guys that were in there had been doing their thing for a while, and they didn't make the change. But this was a situation. It wasn't a situation with grades. It wasn't a situation with behavior or anything like that. It was a pure transfer snafu, and that was really. That's a tough way to go, man. Now, on the flip side, he does save a year. Like running backs have short shelf lives. We know this. So he saved a year of wear and tear on the body. He's going to continue to go. And, boy, he's ready to go. He was, like I said, he reached out to me. He wanted to talk about this. He said, I'm ready to go for next season. Like he's going to take this as motivation and take it to the next level. He's also good with Penn State. Like he's, frankly, taking his words for what they were, not interested in looking at any other schools. So we're going to see that develop in the spring in terms of what he's doing with football and 7-on-7 and all that kind of stuff. So continue that arc of where Penn State thought he was, which Penn State thought he was one of the best backs in the country as a 2025 prospect. That's why you take a guy from Texas. Like you don't always do that. You don't always take a guy from far out of the region that early unless you absolutely believe in him. Penn State believes him, so we're going to see what happens with Keandre Barker as his career progresses. But just wanted to provide that update because it's a situation which we didn't have answers for the longest time. Reached out to Keandre a couple of times. He didn't want to. He didn't respond in kind. So now that he has, I wanted to get that out there because the channel has asked about him many times.
Yeah, that's got to be super frustrating. That situation sounds like that sucks. Like truthfully. So appreciate the update. That's good to know. Another update that has been, I think, brewing for a while. Ryan, you put in an RPM pick, and now this is a 100% RPM pick from both of you guys. So just lay out what's going on with the latest Nittany line that you guys are projecting to join the program.
Yeah, so I put it in publicly this morning. We wrote about it on Tuesday. Alex Tash from Greater Latrobe, 2025 linebacker, 6'2", 210. Had a heck of a season. I mean, I think we've really kind of laid out his rise over the last, I don't know, a couple of months or so. 79 tackles this year. I mean, was a turnover machine. I forget the exact fumbles and interceptions, but I think it was like 6 or 7 turnovers himself. I want to say like 4 picks, 3 forced fumbles, something like that. But just had a heck of a rise here. You know, started with just 2 offers from Marshall and UConn, I think, in the spring, and now he's well up over a dozen with plenty of top schools. The thing to note here. that wasn't really public until we learned about it early in the week, was that Tash made it up to campus this weekend. And when you look at his visit history, right, comes for the whiteout game in September, comes for the Indiana game, comes for the Michigan game. Okay, 3 visits, 3 months. Obviously that grabs attention. But all those visits were also for games, and you're only learning so much when you come for those games, right? You get little time with the staff. Obviously, they're focused on the game itself, of course. So getting him up in December, pretty quickly after the season to tour the Lash building, learn about academics, do all those other little things that you need to do before you can realistically make a decision, grabbed my attention instantly. Is he going to be a guy who makes a move really soon? I'm not exactly sure. He doesn't really, I don't know if he has that figured out yet. But what I do know is he's not a guy who's trying to be pampered with all these visits, go to all these different schools, collect all these offers. Like, that's not Alex at all. So I think he's a guy we absolutely need to keep an eye on here in the weeks ahead. I don't know if it's going to be in December. I don't know if it'll be in January. Like I said, he's still kind of sorting that out. But this firmly feels like, if I'm picking a guy who's going to be Penn State's next 2025 commitment, Alex Tash is absolutely at the top of that list. So big to get him on campus this weekend. I'll give another tease too. There was another prominent 4-star prospect quarterback came up to meet with Andy Kolonecki too. Going to keep that behind the paywall for now. But some interesting developments there that we didn't exactly know about Friday going into the weekend. And then once we learned them here at the end, I think it's significant for Penn State's 2025 recruitment moving forward.
We're going to have a lot of that stuff today. Things that we're talking about, but we're talking about at bluewhiteillustrated.com. So Fitz just put up some portal information. So this comment here from C. Paul King, he said, "Merry Christmas, guys. Any good portal news? Do you think there'll be any more players announcing for the NFL opt-out? Seems eerily quiet out there." I would agree. Now, some of that stuff, we'll talk about today, but some of the portal news, go here. We're talking about deals today on the show, bluewhiteillustrated.com. We've got a deal for you just for our YouTube listeners and viewers. We love you guys. So you get 2 months for $1 with code PSU1. Special offer at bluewhiteillustrated.com. So, Ryan, I want to get back to this. We'll talk about some of these things here in just a minute, but you spent a lot of time and you're out there at the state championship game. We talked about Kenny Woseley and Imhotep a little bit, but I wanted to get a rundown of how everything else went for state championship weekend. Who'd you see? How'd it go?
Yeah, I saw a lot of blowouts, for being honest, right? Didn't work out too well for Matt Sieg and Fort Cherry. Steel High gets their second straight championship. Congrats to the Irby twins going out strong. It was clear really from the beginning there that just Fort Cherry didn't have the size to match up with Steel High. So that ended up being a bit of a blowout. Of course, Tyke Hayes had probably one of the best showings of Penn State's committed players. I would probably argue he had the best of the week Friday night in that 4A game, 222 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, finished the year. I clarified this because I put a tweet out the other day that he had 1,980 yards rushing on the year. I got corrected by many in Aliquippa for that. Sorry, guys. I was using Pittsburgh Post-Gazette stats. Supposedly he had right around 2,200 yards for the year, 27 touchdowns. So he did break that 2,000 yards.
Messed everything up.
So he did break that 2,000-yard mark, which always is significant, right? But, I thought Hayes, just his running style and, the lazy comparison is Katron Allen. I'm sure we can find a better one, but, incredibly strong runner. When he gets in the open field too,
great moves.
He's able to certainly break away better than I kind of thought he would. As far as overall speed, I'd still love to get a number on him at some point. But there's no doubt, Tyke Hayes is a guy that's moving up right now, and I'll be curious to see what Charles Barker is able to. What I say, Charles Power, excuse me. What his evaluation is when he's able to check out Tyke Hayes. But Saturday, like I said, that Westinghouse game was pretty fun. Anybody who watched that, man, that was a brutal way to lose a game. Westinghouse, of course, playing Southern Columbia. Southern Columbia has been dominant for so many years. They had Southern Columbia on the ropes and then gave it all away with a 99-yard drive. I think Southern Columbia scored with about 40 seconds left in that game. But Keyshawn Robinson, quality prospect there, 26. Yeah, that's that's what my face looked like when that happened, Sean, because that was brutal for them. But of course, Imhotep was Saturday night, big win over Dallas. We didn't get to see Ty Sear, Denmark playing that game. He's been suspended for the playoffs just because, not suspended, it's not right, but because of his transfer from Roman. PIAA has a rule where if you make a transfer, go ahead, you can play in the regular season, but you have to sit out the playoffs, which is interesting, and another topic that we can probably discuss another day on how fair that is. But then Saturday's game, of course, Quinton Martin goes off. Bell Vernon gets its second straight state championship, rolls over Northwestern Lehigh, and then St. Joseph Prep does what St. Joseph Prep does, wins another state championship. I think that's their third or fourth now since going to 6A. Of course, they lost to Mount Lebanon, which, looking back on that 2 years ago, basically St. Joseph's Prep, man, a lot of their key players were all sophomores then, and now those sophomores are seniors, and you can really see the development, that they've had over the last couple of years. Mount Lebanon, basically, I'm not saying they got them at the right time, but they kind of got them at the right time. And right now, Prep's just a monster. They roll over North Allegheny. And yeah, like I said, we saw 5 blowouts in one fun game, but Penn State's players all played well. Quinton Martin had a heck of, I think it was like a 92-yard run for a score, first touch in the second half. Northwestern Lehigh was trying to get any momentum they had, and Quinton pretty much put that to bed there to open the third quarter. And yeah, that's what we saw. But Franklin made it down for Friday night game, Saturday night game, Thursday night game, Friday night game, J1 Snyder was there to see Quinton Martin, a lot of Pitt coaches, a lot of Rutgers coaches, a good mix of different staffs here for the PIAA game. So Cumberland Valley's growing on me. I like that facility. That was always a fun topic that people didn't like, moving it from Hershey. But, man, they have built a heck of a facility there. I think they've done a really good job hosting these games. I just know people just don't like that it's high school championships at a high school field. But it is a heck of a facility, and they take care of fans pretty well. And, I thought it was a good time.
Quickly, and I know that this doesn't apply to what Penn State will do with him, but I haven't checked in on Quinton in a while. Is he still kind of a dual role player? Is he still playing out wide sometimes and playing in the backfield? Are they using him in that same multiplicity?
He ran the ball the vast majority of the time, maybe had a handful of catches. But yeah, man, they split him out wide, to kind of find mismatches, and they use him a lot as a decoy. They have quite a few other players that I don't know if they match him exactly in touches, but they're not that far off. So, I like, for example, I think if Quinton Martin was at a couple different schools, you would have seen so many more, just yards, stats, touchdowns, all that good stuff. And that's not a knock on how Bell Vernon does it. It's probably a good thing for Quinton down the road because, the wear and tear. But just like you'd be surprised at how much they use him compared to some other, major schools who have a top 100 prospect like that. So it's I think probably a good thing long-term for him. Like I said, keeping the wear and tear off.
We got some questions here in the chat, and we got to get to the most important one first. Fitz's t-shirt game. What's going on here? Steven can't piece it together. So your camera's a little bit higher than normal. So what do we got?
Colorado School of Mines.
There we go.
The Ore Diggers, yes, out in Golden, Colorado. It's a home field shirt, and I love cartoon mascots, so they got me. Sorry.
I love it. I love that there's always something. There's always something of interest here with Fitz and his t-shirts.
They were in the D2 National Championship game last year, I believe it was. So the very successful program out there. It's just a little different.
Yeah. Eric asks, did Yvonne Kamaju at Paint Branch get an offer? Apologize if I don't have that name correct. We saw a lot of him at the end of the season. Good length and quickness. We're getting might still be growing. Check out his game against BCC. My guy is number 3 on BCC. So Eric giving us a scouting report. Ryan, do you have any information on this particular situation?
Yes, they did. It's about 2 weeks ago. Was it last week, Sean? Maybe 2 weeks ago. Either way, yeah, it's been in December. I'd be lying if I said I knew a whole lot. I mean, with the portal right now, and obviously trying to track down these visits and different things like that, I haven't researched them a whole lot. I would say check back in January where we can fully transition over to 2025 and look back on film and things like that. I can talk to you about him a little bit more. But yeah, he did pick up an offer. I believe Maryland, Va Tech were the other two. who have offered so far, and I'm sure many others are coming. But we'll definitely do our due diligence on all types of Maryland, New Jersey, all those guys. But get me past the portal first, please.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. Want to get to this because I think that this is very important. The holidays are here. One thing I learned is that around Thanksgiving, there's not a whole lot going on. People tend to wind down a little bit, but if you have some time off and you want to do some stuff around the holidays, check out the GameTime app because they have the ability to give you the lowdown on what's going on. So here is the schedule for the Bryce Jordan Center. Here's a thing that T. Frank doesn't know. Schedules, times, dates, what's going on. I'm not great at this, so if somebody has that information, this is great for me. This is GameTime, their desktop, their website, but you should definitely download the GameTime app. Because it's super useful and you can do all of this on your phone. I am a dinosaur in this way. I always use my desktop, but I know that everyone else uses their phone. And when you download the GameTime app, create an account, use promo code BWI for $20 off your first purchase. So if you want to go check out maybe a game, Penn State basketball, Lady Lions basketball, or maybe you want to go see Travis Scott. All of that going on at the Bryce Jordan Center. And they have this broken down by, you can search a venue, you can search a region, you can search for different types of events. Maybe you want to go see a comedy show in Pittsburgh, or maybe you want to go see something else in Philly. Maybe you want to go see the Flyers. All of that stuff you can find on the GameTime app, and you can see your seats, so you know what you're getting, and they've got great deals for you as well. They have flash sales and things like that where you can get secure tickets, guaranteed tickets, and a great seat. So check out the GameTime app. Again, use promo code BWI to get $20 off your first purchase on the GameTime app. Thanks to them for being a part of the show here. So I want to get to Anthony Spica. And we're coming back to you, Ryan, because I know you had a conversation with him. One of the things that I found super interesting, whatever you want to talk about in the article, there's something I'm chomping at the bit to talk about, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about what you thought was interesting of your conversation with him and his reaction to the unofficial visit day that they had this past weekend with all the recruits.
Yeah, I would say, in addition to Spica, just talking about the whole group overall, they had about a dozen guys come up. Most of the regional guys, Egan Boyer came up. Like I said, I'm going to have a story on him later today on his weekend. Grunk was there. Corey Smith, Donovan Harbour came in from Wisconsin. A lot of the defensive linemen, too. I know Malachi Williams was able to get in town. Jalen Harvey, Xavier Gilliam, a handful of others. I think there was one or two of their upcoming walk-ons as well. So just kind of sharing, who was able to make it up this weekend. With Spica, he's been as firmly committed as anybody in this class, right? Cooper was the first, committed like a year before everybody else. Cooper Cousins, of course, I'm talking about. And then Spica, I believe, was the second committing last January. Chose Penn State over Michigan. So there was never a reason to really be concerned or anything about the Manny Diaz news. He gave us a great quote about, whether Manny was here or not. I was always going to Penn State. Of course, his relationship with Dan Connor has been kind of well advertised. We've talked about that a few times. He mentioned that Dan told him that he's going to be here till Franklin fires him, which I don't think Franklin would ever fire Dan Connor, but that'd be interesting if that happened one day. But a great season for Spica. Broke his team's career tackles, 326, I believe he finished with all-time career. Led the team in tackles this year with 17 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Made Fab 22 for the Post-Gazette. So everything that you kind of expect from his senior season was there. They did lose to North Allegheny. I won't keep talking about that because that was an upset that I know still stings for those guys, because I think a lot of people expected Central Catholic to end up playing prep in that 6A championship. But good visit weekend overall, right? I think that was the main takeaway. A lot of guys, just kind of enjoyed hanging out with their future teammates, their committed guys. For Boyer, for example, he was hosted by Jackson Smolik for his official visit in June. Connected with him again this weekend. We'll talk about that in a story I posted a little later today. But go ahead, T. Frank. What's your point you want to get in?
Oh, I just when he talked about, I think he mentioned having some new coaches on his staff that helped him understand his position a little bit better. The light came on for him in a lot of ways on film, and there's always a reason. I just love finding out the reason. So I watched early in the year. I'm like, oh, he gets it. Like, he's not just hyper aggressive and fast and accelerating to the line of scrimmage. He's seeing it now. And sometimes that happens just with maturation. And sometimes there's a reason. And I found that, like, you know, when you connect dots, I love that. I love the context clues. So I thought that was impressive on his film, and I wanted to give him credit for that, but also it's nice to know like the reasoning behind something like that. So great article, you know, go check it out. Go hear what Anthony had to say about all of this stuff. Question here in the chat, and Fitz, I was hoping you could talk about this. Now, Tash, this is, we'll fold in both of these guys. Is Tash a box guy or a Sam, asks Lambda. And then with a new defensive coordinator, I'm sure all of this is kind of in flux. But with Spica, I know that he was kind of an either-or box guy. Is it a big deal, you know, not having a linebackers coach to know kind of pinpoint where he's going to be at the next level heading into, you know, the early signing period, early enrolling? Is it a minor detail or something that we'll figure out and it will be important?
I think there's enough trust there that it's a minor detail at this point. Like, you're going to bring in somebody, or James is going to bring in somebody that's, you know, knows what they're doing. You feel pretty confident about that. So like, I think it's one of those ones like we talked about with Beckham Kritza, is you trust the guy at the top, and then he's going to make it happen. So whether he's a box, whether it's a Mike, Will, whatever, I think that's something that always gets sorted out when you get to campus anyway. Like, you have the best intention of making a guy something, and then all of a sudden Tony Rojas is not a Sam, he's a Will, you know, that's kind of how that whole thing works. And you kind of feel it too. You look at the guys around you. You look at what Penn State likes to do with those certain positions, and you kind of feel that which spot you go to. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. Tash, you know, for his size right now, like I said, I saw you said either or. I think he's probably a box guy. I think he's probably a Will at this point. Does some coverage things, but that's going to be a jump, man. From Latrobe to the Big Ten is going to be quite a big jump. And how much can you take from coverage skills from that level of football? I just don't know. He does some really nice things. Don't get me wrong here, but it's going to be a jump for him. So I would lean box. You play the numbers, and usually that's where those guys end up.
Yeah, he moves well, I guess is the thing. And finding out, I just looking at his film, hard to tell what his speed is, but not Tony Rojas, but, you know, moves well and has the opportunity. I just didn't want to dismiss it out of hand that he might be able to play Sam if he's able to. With those numbers, eventually he'll be a Will. Like, eventually he's a Will. Does he get the treatment of starting out into the field and then moving in and seeing how that all works? Kind of like guys get a chance to play outside before they play inside on the offensive line. And
we're going to see what the new guy has in store. Like, the Sam under Brent Pry was similar, but not the exact same thing as what Manny Diaz liked to do. So the Sam under whoever the next guy is probably going to be similar, but not like exclusively what Manny liked to do. So like, you're going to have some flexibility there. Is it more of a third, you know, like a strong side linebacker? I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So those are the details to work out, but I think there's enough trust there that it doesn't really change much.
Yeah, and I think that part of the conversation about the new defensive coordinator is also the talent that you have on the roster, which the safety position also is a part of that. So do you want to have guys that have that body type be part of the conversation at that field backer position? All these things have to be sorted out once we find out who the defensive coordinator is. So these kind of fun, intricate, nuanced details, that we'll get some more information about how all of those guys fit together. I want to get to, Fitz, I want to get to some of the stuff that you wrote about this week, and then we'll come back and finish up with some recruiting stuff. But Andre Green, Penn State, hosted him last week. Is there anything you want to share from that article, which, again, over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, you can get the full context of what Andre Green had to say to Fitz about his visit, but what do you want to share here?
Yeah, he's still going to go to Virginia this weekend, and that's not something that you can totally write off. He's from Virginia. He's from Richmond, played at St. Christopher's, which is where Garrett Taylor played, former Nittany Lions. So, like, there's connections there to Virginia, and that's a place that you can go and you can be sort of, used and exposed to a bigger role. And you look at what they did last year with Malik Washington from Northwestern. Nobody was beating down the door for Malik Washington last year when he went from Northwestern to Virginia. Ended up being an All-American or All-ACC. I'm not sure where he fell on the All-American. He had a fantastic season. So they have that sort of stock there to sell to Andre Green and say, hey, we can do this with you. I know they've taken a couple other players, offensive players in the portal as well. So that's a tough job right there. And I'm not sure how much longer that one's going to hold together, but it's going to be a situation where there's opportunity there. And when you're recruiting in the portal, like that is something you take into account, like the opportunity that, Penn State's going to have openings at receiver, but also other schools are going to have openings at a higher ranked receiver. So, if you're coming in and you're saying Trey Wallace is going to be Penn State's #1 receiver next year, well, there's an opening for #2, whereas Malik Washington's gone from Virginia. There's going to be an opening for #1. So, it's one of those things that it's not cut and dry. Obviously, you put Penn State and Virginia beside each other. Penn State wins that battle many, many times. But portal recruiting is a little bit different. And we're going to see where he's at coming out of Virginia. I think Penn State did a lot to put themselves in a good spot coming out of their official visit.
So check that out. And then the last thing is, I know you put something up right before the show, so there's a lot of hot off the press portal news, which there has been not a whole lot of portal news for Penn State football. So I don't want to pin you down to ask you anything specific. Just generally, what can people find there to go get the news from you?
Yeah, Penn State's it's the second round of visits this weekend, so we're going to see who pops up on campus. Those things are hectic and crazy, and you got guys coming in that are maybe at other schools right now as we speak on Thursday, and they'll be at Penn State on Friday. So check that out. Still working on that visitor list. We got some guys that we think are going to be there, but nothing's ever for certain. In portal recruiting, it is crazier than regular recruiting, and it's all jammed into about 2.5 weeks. So it's fantastic, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's saying something. Here's a question that folds into that kind of. This is from Culpmont Winery. I need to pre-read these before I put them on the air because they have been here before. With NIL and players allowed to get agents, does this change things with guys making last-minute decisions going pro and then returning if their stock slips? Because of the hiring of the agent process, if you can have an agent for NIL, can you have an agent and then return? They say, I know before if they hired an agent, they couldn't return. Do you guys know, is there a change in the rule there, Fitz?
So the agent from that aspect is a little bit different than the pro agent. And I know that they are somewhat connected because they're agents and they like to take the percentages or whatever, but it's a little bit different. I think the NBA is the one where it's like, if you hire an agent, you're done. I think the rules have changed on that, so don't quote me there. But there's the deadline where you can go pro, and then there's not. I mean, there's really nothing that is like there's no language there that says that if you have an NIL agent and you declare for the draft, you can't come back. Like that's a situation where you have to have your name into the NFL Draft Advisory Board, or I guess that's who that goes to, by the certain January date, I believe it is. And then after that, it's off the table. So it doesn't really change much. These guys not all of them, but a lot of them have agents in college now. So it's not a situation where that's completely out of the question as it used to be. So like with Curtis Enos getting a suit, stuff like that stuff is kind of irrelevant at this point. So it doesn't really change much from that aspect. As long as you're on the table in that January date, then, or as long as your name is in that January date, you're not coming back.
I also think it's a little different than basketball, where if you have one guy that's testing the waters and then decides to come back, you can find scholarship room. But if in football, like these numbers, you guys are talking about the portal recruiting and juggling these numbers with then the potential of returning after the combine or something would be crazy.
Somebody asked about it on the board this week because Johnny Dixon accepted the Senior Bowl offer, and he can't come back. He's out of eligibility. He can't come back anyway. But you can accept one of those offers and then not playing the game, you basically have to give the offer back, not playing the game. You can come back from that. We've seen Brisker do that. Somebody else did that. Adisa maybe last year, or somebody did it last year.
Somebody did,
but it was a situation where like you're not bound by that. So that can happen. But if you play in that game, you're done. Like because that is a different outside competition. So it's not that difficult to follow, but like there are some times when you're just kind of like, hey, can that guy come back? And with the COVID year, it doesn't help anybody. I mean, it helps the guys that it's helping, obviously, with the extra year of eligibility. But from a mathematical perspective, from an analysis perspective, it's just mucked everything up. And I can't say that enough.
Yeah. And that's something that we outlined a little bit of this with the just kind of the pros and cons of what each guy has. in terms of what his situation for either going pro or staying at Penn State is. You can check that out at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Started with the offense. Went through the guys that have the most interesting decisions to make, and then we'll be doing the defense today as well. Ryan, speaking of great articles, I know that there's some stuff here that Ryan is so good at getting these conversations with people, getting these interviews. Nobody else is getting, and if you're getting that information from a different site, they probably got it from him anyway.
Man.
Was that too far? Is that a toe line?
Not me.
Sorry.
Sorry. Not me.
So, what are some of the things you've been writing about at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com that people can go check out here at the end of the show?
I was going to cut you off before we switched over to the Andre Green talk, because the perfect transition when we're talking about box linebackers, it was the Anthony Sacka story. Because here's we talking about a guy who's been wanting to play safety, or as an underclassman felt pretty. He made it pretty clear that he wanted to play safety long term, and sure enough, now he's playing linebacker, which is what many expected him to be. But whether he would be, I think he would be more of a 3-down guy. We'll see. We're getting way ahead of ourselves for a 2025 prospect, but yeah, Sacka was probably the other big interview we kind of did after the PIAA championships, just kind of catching up with him, learning more about his future plans. Of course, I'm talking about Anthony Sacka, Tony Sacka's son, St. Joseph's prep prospect. I think most of you guys know who he is by now if you follow recruiting pretty closely. A couple things I'll note. One, Sacka's going to visit Penn State. He hasn't visited in over a year. We'll leave the details of when all that's going to go down and all that behind the paywall, but they should be getting him back on campus here somewhat soon. We'll leave it at that. The thing to note, what was interesting to me, is that he's still very wide open. And when you look at his visits, he's taken 10 visits total over basically a 2-year span. 4 of them have been to Penn State, which you would expect, family ties and all that stuff. But he hasn't been here since October 2022, which is interesting. I kind of thought he'd be back by now. But I think when you kind of talk to him more and you learn more about how he's handled recruiting, he's very just, I don't want to say laid back about it, but he's kind of like Tash in some ways, where he's like, I don't want to go on all these visits and be pampered. I just want to figure out what's the right school for me, and then I'll decide whenever I'm ready. And I don't think he's necessarily ready to make a move. He's definitely not ready to make a move. He made that pretty clear. But he's got some visits he needs to get done here, either in January or going into the spring. I think Wisconsin has his interest. Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those kind of feel like the other schools, along with Penn State, that I feel pretty confident he's going to end up at. But he really needs to take some visits and kind of sort things out. He made it very clear that I have no idea where I'm going right now. And for a player who's had all these offers for such a long time, most guys I think have a better feel for the situation. Again, he has his top schools down, but he's just been very laid back about it. He only took, I think, 2 visits this year, once to Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Notre Dame played Ohio State. That was the other one he went to. So pretty laid back recruitment overall, I guess is the best way to put it. Penn State's certainly in the mix, but they also, this whole Manny Diaz defensive coordinator change does impact him a little bit more than I think some others, because Manny really did emerge as his lead recruiter here over the last couple of months. And, he said hey, the last time I talked to Penn State, they were telling me Manny was leaving. So that wasn't a very fun conversation, but Zemaitis, Franklin, all those guys are certainly chipping away at that, but they need to get him back on campus. And it looks like that's going to happen here fairly soon.
So check all that stuff out, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm going to get out of here before I say anything else stupid. So, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Excellent work, as always. Fitz, what's up?
Frank, can I sign off? Steven, who's a regular here, asked about Kendry Harrison out of Reidsville, North Carolina. He's been to Penn State. He is a potential 5-star. That kid is going to have everybody. He's one of the best athletes in the country, regardless of class. He's going to be a tight end. I think he's about 6'4", 6'5", 240. Also a basketball player with a scholarship offer from Penn State. He came up to visit Penn State for Whiteout. And picked up an offer from Mike Rhodes that day. And actually was taking photos, and Mike Rhodes went out of his way to go see Kendry Harrison before they all did their line thing. So he is a guy, he's a top target for Penn State. He's gonna be a top target for everybody. He's like Kyle Pitts type, that kind of player. He's really, really athletic. So definitely check him out. I don't know if Penn State's going to be in it for the long haul, but Penn State's done pretty well with tight ends, so he's going to be in the 5-star mix. I think he's number 9 overall in the On3 industry rankings for 26, and those rankings are way too early and everything like that. But like, he's going to be up there. He's really good. He's one of the guys that you can look at in 26 and be like, yeah, that guy's going to be the real deal. Like by the end of his recruitment.
Ryan, anything else you want to get us out on?
I was just gonna answer that. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, we'll see transfer portal guys who shows up on campus this weekend. Sean obviously has done a great job staying on top of that, and check back Sunday, Monday, and we'll go from there.
Fitz, I wanted to ask you, part of the receiver conversation, Jamori Macklin commits to a different school, obviously. Pressure there or they feel pretty confident in their lane, or just generally your thoughts on Jamori Macklin going to Kentucky? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. I mean, portal's hectic right now. Like there's good and bad. Like we had some notes up there that feels positive. We had some notes the other day that felt negative. Like it's you. This is a roller coaster, and if you follow this like from like point to point, and there's a lot to handle here, and some people have not handled it well. Let me tell you, but it's going to be a roller coaster that you have to follow the entire way through. Macklin was a top target for Penn State. He went to Kentucky. He visited Kentucky last weekend, so it's not like it came out of nowhere. Kentucky's now picked up a couple of wide receivers, so they were a school that was mentioned with Julian Fleming. So there's a lot of like chain reaction type stuff going on here. But yeah, you can look at that and say, hey, that's a kid they wanted. That's a kid James Franklin visited in Missouri last week. Feels like a couple weeks ago, but last week, and now he's going elsewhere. So yeah, there are losses in the portal. Certainly, you just have to regroup and find the right guys. And I think they're working on that. It's not a situation where they're sitting on their hands. I think everybody is expecting the results before like the actions can take place, and that's kind of where we're at. And we've already forgotten about Alan Heron, who committed earlier this week.
I was going to say, how do we go this whole podcast? We didn't even bring him up.
We talked about him on Tuesday, and we had a show
Monday.
already. It's just it was so funny because it's like it's like the South Park episode with the change and like you give them you gave the homeless change, and then they're like, okay, where's the next one? Like that's what it was.
I was wondering where you're going with that. Okay,
change.
Yeah, I feel unhoused, obviously, wrong word, but it's like you got Alan Heron. It's like, okay, great. What's next? What do we like? That's fine. But what's next? I want the next one. And I understand that mindset, because it's always, you're always looking to get better, always looking to get something else. The new thing is the better thing, obviously, as we've seen. But that's kind of how it's been with the portal, is like, okay, great. Those notes were fine. But what about this guy? What about this guy? What about that guy? Okay. There's a lot going on here now. We just got to follow it as best we can. And the best way to follow that, T. Frank?
BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Sign up right now for $1 and get 2 months when you use promo code PSU1. By the way, the link to sign up is in the description of the video. I should mention that more often. You don't even have to go that far. Just scroll down and you'll see subscribe for $1. Bang, you click on that and you are into the info from these guys. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all your time and for the bonus information we got here at the end of the show. We'll be back with Bowl Media Day tomorrow. Lots of people talking. There's going to be lots of videos at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com and here on the YouTube channel. So stay tuned. We'll hear from Auntie Koldanicki for the first time. So all that coming up tomorrow. No reason to go anywhere. We'll talk to you then.